It was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life, the moment he slid the ring onto her finger and sealed their future. But before the gold band could touch her skin, her golden retriever lunged. Not at a stranger, but at the groom. Hero, her devoted service dog, locked his jaws around Liam's hand with a snarl that shattered the solemn silence. Guests screamed. Liam cried out, stumbling back as blood bloomed on his white cuff. Chaos erupted, but the real horror was just beginning. Because the police who rushed forward didn't come for the dog. They came for her. As cold metal handcuffs clasped over her lace sleeves, Chloe looked into Hero's frantic, whimpering eyes and saw it. Not madness, but a desperate, profound warning. In that moment, she knew this wasn't a tragic accident. This was the first crack in a life built on lies. A lie so deep it would see her arrested at her own wedding. Stay with us, because this story twists in ways you will never see coming. Before we continue, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Let me know where you're joining us from in the comments. The morning sun streamed through the chiffon curtains of the bridal suite, painting everything in a soft, hopeful glow. Chloe stood before the floor-length mirror, a smile playing on her lips as a bridesmaid fastened the last pearl button on her gown. Today was the day. Her dress, a vision of silk and lace, seemed to hold its own breath beside her. The air was sweet with the scent of flowers and hairspray, filled with the cheerful chaos of her friends preparing her for her fairy tale ending. But amidst the laughter and the gentle clinking of champagne flutes, a quiet discord thrummed. Hero, her steadfast service dog, lay not calmly at her feet as he always did, but was pacing a slow, restless path by the door. His normally placid brow was furrowed, his ears flicking at every distant sound in the hallway. He wasn't barking or whining, but Chloe could feel the anxiety vibrating through him, a silent alarm she couldn't decipher. "Hero, come here, boy," she called softly, patting her thigh. On any other day, he would have come instantly, leaning his weight against her leg with a contented sigh. Today he only stopped pacing to look at her, his amber eyes wide and intense, fixed on her as if trying to project a thought she couldn't hear. "Someone's got wedding day jitters worse than me," Chloe joked, her nervous laugh echoing slightly in the suddenly quieting room. The bridesmaid smiled, but Hero didn't. His tail stayed still. As the photographer captured glowing portraits and her mother tearfully adjusted her veil, Chloe's own calm began to fray. Hero had been her anchor for years, sensing the rise of her panic attacks before she could, grounding her with a steady nudge of his nose. He had never been wrong, but this was her wedding day. There was no threat here, no danger, only love and promise. Right? When Liam popped his head in, grinning and handsome in his tuxedo, Hero moved. In a flash, he was between Chloe and the door, his body a solid, low barrier. He didn't growl, but a deep, rumbling sound vibrated in his chest. The room's chatter died. "Whoa, easy, Hero," Liam said, holding up his hands with a surprised chuckle. "I'm not stealing her yet." "I don't know what's gotten into him," Chloe admitted, her fingers threading through the stiff fur on Hero's neck. "He's been on edge all morning." Liam shrugged, his smile easy. "Probably just smells my bachelor party on me." He dismissed it, but Hero didn't relax. He remained planted, a living, breathing wall of unease, his gaze tracking Liam's every move until the groom left. Chloe tried to bury the creeping disquiet, blaming it on the overwhelming emotions of the day. But as the final hour ticked down, Hero's vigilance only tightened. He was no longer just her comfort animal. He was her silent, desperate sentinel, and she was finally starting to listen. The sound of laughter echoed from downstairs, where the groomsmen were getting ready,
but Chloe barely heard it over the hammering of her own heart. Her bridesmaid, Maya, was adjusting the train of her dress when they heard it, a sharp bark followed by Liam's raised voice. "Hero? Where did he—" Chloe started, but Maya was already moving toward the door. "I'll get him. You stay here and don't mess up that dress." Chloe nodded, but the unease from the morning crawled back up her spine. Through the open door, she could hear footsteps. Then Liam's voice, louder now, irritated in a way she'd never heard before. "Get him out of here! Now!" Maya appeared moments later, gripping Hero's collar, the dog resisting every step. His eyes were locked backward, toward the groom's suite, his body rigid with tension. When Maya finally managed to pull him into the bridal room, Hero immediately tried to turn back, whining low in his throat. "What happened?" Chloe asked, kneeling beside him. Maya shook her head, confusion written across her face. "He was in Liam's room, circling his briefcase like it was on fire. Liam was, I don't know, really angry about it. Not like worried about the dog angry, more like—" She trailed off, clearly searching for the right word. "Like what?" "Protective. Like Hero was going to break something valuable." Chloe's fingers found the familiar spot behind Hero's ears, but he wouldn't settle. His attention remained fixed on the door, his breathing rapid and shallow. This was his alert behavior, the one he'd been trained to use when he sensed her anxiety building. But she wasn't anxious. Not really. Just excited. Normal wedding day nerves. "It's okay, boy," she whispered. "It's just Liam's work stuff. You know how he is about his work." But even as she said it, something felt wrong. Liam had always been secretive about his consulting job, always taking calls in another room, always password protecting everything. She told herself it was just corporate confidentiality, client privacy, nothing unusual for someone in finance. But the way he'd snapped at Hero, the edge in his voice. The door opened and Liam appeared, his smile back in place, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. He'd changed into his tuxedo, and he looked perfect, every inch the handsome groom. But when Hero saw him, the dog's entire body tensed, a low growl building in his chest. "Hey, hey," Liam said, his voice tight with forced patience. "We talked about this, buddy. Today's a good day. No need for the guard dog routine." He stepped forward to kiss Chloe, but Hero moved between them, blocking his path. "Hero, down," Chloe commanded, embarrassment flooding her cheeks. Hero obeyed, but his eyes never left Liam. There was something in that stare, something Chloe had seen only once before, when Hero had alerted on a suspicious package at the courthouse where she worked, a package that had later been confirmed as containing stolen documents. "I'm sorry," Chloe said, looking up at Liam. "I don't know what's gotten into him today." Liam's smile was tight. "Maybe he's jealous. Knows he won't be the only man in your life anymore." He laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Anyway, I just came to say I can't wait to see you at the altar. 1 hour, and you'll be Mrs. Peterson." He left before Chloe could respond, and the moment the door closed, Hero rushed to it, pawing at the wood, whining desperately. The church was everything Chloe had dreamed of. White roses cascading down every pew, soft classical music drifting through the vaulted space, sunlight streaming through stained glass windows in ribbons of gold and blue. Her bridesmaids had gone ahead to check the flower arrangements, leaving Chloe alone in the vestibule with Hero and her father. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," her father said, his voice thick with emotion. He reached out to adjust her veil, but Hero immediately stepped between them, forcing him to pull back. "Hero, please," Chloe whispered, her patience wearing thin. "Not now." Before her father could try again, the heavy church doors swung open, and 2 men entered. They were both in their 40s, wearing slightly ill-fitting suits that seemed too formal for their casual demeanor. One was stocky with graying hair, the other tall and lean with sharp, observant eyes. Sorry we're late, the stocky one said, flashing an apologetic smile. Traffic was a nightmare. I'm Robert, Liam's cousin from Denver. This is my brother James. Chloe's father extended his hand. Good to meet you. I don't think Liam mentioned, but he didn't finish. Hero had gone completely rigid beside Chloe, his hackles rising slowly along his spine. The growl that emerged from his throat was different from the ones earlier, deeper, more threatening, the kind of sound that made people take a step back. Hero, no, Chloe commanded, but he didn't budge. Instead, he moved directly in front of her, his body a wall between her and the two men, his eyes locked on them with laser focus. The two men, Robert and James, exchanged a glance. It was quick, barely a fraction of a second, but something about it made Chloe's stomach tighten. Not surprise at the dog's behavior, not fear. Something else. Something knowing. Is he always like this? James asked, his tone carefully neutral. No, Chloe said quickly, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She grabbed Hero's collar, feeling his muscles coiled like springs beneath her hand. I'm so sorry. He's been off all morning. I think he's picking up on my stress. Robert smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Understandable. Big day and all. He took a deliberate step forward, and Hero's growl intensified, his lips pulling back to reveal teeth. Hero, enough! Chloe's voice cracked with frustration and mortification. These were Liam's family members, and her dog was acting like they were intruders. Maybe we should just head in, James suggested, gesturing toward the sanctuary. Give him some space to settle down. Yes, please, Chloe said, nearly in tears now. I'm so sorry about this. The two men nodded and moved past them, but Chloe noticed how they walked, not like offended wedding guests, but with a practiced awareness of their surroundings, their eyes scanning the church interior as if cataloging exits and sightlines. When they disappeared into the sanctuary, Hero finally relaxed slightly, though he remained tense, his attention fixed on the doorway where they'd vanished. He turned to look at Chloe, and for the second time that day, she saw it clearly in his eyes. Not confusion, not stress, warning. Her father squeezed her shoulder. Sweetheart, maybe we should have the vet check him after the honeymoon. This isn't normal behavior. Chloe nodded absently. But she couldn't shake the image of that glance between the two men, the way they'd looked at each other when Hero alerted, the way they'd assessed the situation with a calmness that seemed almost professional. Stop it, she told herself firmly. You're seeing things that aren't there. They're just relatives you've never met. Liam has a big family. But Hero pressed closer to her leg, trembling now, and she couldn't quite convince herself that everything was fine. The music shifted, the opening notes of Pachelbel's canon filling the church like a wave. This was it, the moment Chloe had imagined 1,000 times since Liam proposed on that beach at sunset, the diamond ring glinting in the fading light as he promised her forever. Her father offered his arm, and through the open doors, Chloe could see the sanctuary transformed into something magical. Every head turned toward her, faces she loved smiling through happy tears. Her mother in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Liam's parents beside her, beaming with pride. The bridesmaids in their soft lavender dresses, already crying. Ready? Her father whispered. Chloe nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She gripped Hero's leash in her left hand, feeling the leather cut into her palm. He'd been her anchor through the darkest period of her life, and she'd insisted he be part of this moment, this new beginning. They stepped into the aisle, and the guests rose as one. Chloe's eyes found Liam at the altar, looking devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, his hands clasped in front of him, his smile wide and genuine. This was the man who'd brought her coffee every morning, who'd held her through panic attacks at 3 a.m, who'd promised to love her through everything. But as they moved forward, step by measured step, Chloe became increasingly aware of the tension radiating from Hero.
The leash was taut between them, not because he was pulling away, but because every muscle in his body was rigid. His head was lowered, his gaze fixed straight ahead with an intensity that made her skin prickle. She glanced down at him. "Hero, it's okay," she murmured. But he wasn't looking at her, wasn't acknowledging her at all. His entire focus was locked on one point in the church, Liam, standing at the altar, waiting. The guests didn't seem to notice. They were too busy admiring her dress, smiling at the romantic scene, recording videos on their phones. But Chloe felt it, the wrongness of it, the way Hero moved beside her not like a companion, but like a soldier approaching enemy territory. Halfway down the aisle, Hero's breathing changed, becoming rapid and shallow. His body lowered slightly, his shoulders hunched, his tail completely still. This was his ready position, the stance he took before an alert. "Hero, please," Chloe whispered desperately. "Not now. Please, not now." Her father must have sensed something wrong because he leaned closer. "Do you want to stop?" "No," Chloe said quickly. She couldn't stop. Not here, not in front of everyone, not when she was so close to the life she'd worked so hard to believe she deserved. They continued forward. The music swelled. Liam's smile never wavered. But Chloe noticed something she hadn't seen from the back of the church. A tightness around his eyes, a slight pallor to his skin, the way his hands, clasped in front of him, were trembling slightly. 10 feet from the altar, Hero's growl began. Low and continuous, a sound that seemed to come from somewhere primal and ancient. Several guests heard it now, their expressions shifting from joy to concern. "Almost there, sweetheart," her father said, his own voice uncertain. But Hero had stopped walking entirely. The leash went taut as Chloe tried to move forward, but he'd planted himself like a statue, his eyes never leaving Liam, his body a tense line of pure restraint. And for the first time, Chloe looked, really looked, at her groom, and saw what Hero had been seeing all along. Fear. The officiant, Reverend Matthews, cleared his throat awkwardly as Chloe finally coaxed Hero the last few steps to the altar. The guests settled back into their seats, the moment of tension dissolving into nervous laughter and whispered comments about the unpredictable nature of animals. "Dearly beloved," Reverend Matthews began, his voice warm and practiced. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Chloe Marie Bennett and Liam James Peterson in holy matrimony." Chloe tried to focus on the words, on the vows she'd memorized, on Liam's face in front of her. But Hero's leash was wrapped around her wrist, and she could feel every tremor running through his body, every rapid breath, every coiled muscle waiting to spring. Liam reached for her free hand, and Hero's growl deepened. Several guests shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe someone should take the dog?" Liam's mother stage whispered from the front row. "No," Chloe said firmly, surprising herself. "He stays." Liam's smile tightened, but he nodded. "Of course. Whatever you want, babe." The ceremony continued through readings and prayers. Chloe's bridesmaid Maya read from Corinthians, her voice wavering slightly as she kept glancing at Hero. The whole church felt different now, the romantic atmosphere replaced by something electric and wrong. Finally, Reverend Matthews smiled. "Now for the exchange of rings. Liam, if you'll take Chloe's hand." Liam reached into his jacket pocket with his right hand, pulling out the small velvet box containing her wedding band. As he opened it, his left hand extended toward Chloe, palm up, waiting for hers. That's when everything exploded. Hero moved with a speed Chloe had only seen once before, during his training demonstration when he'd disarmed a mock attacker. The leash ripped from her wrist as he launched himself forward, jaws open, targeting Liam's outstretched hand with surgical precision. "Hero! No!" Chloe screamed. but it was too late. Hero's teeth closed around Liam's hand, and Liam's scream of pain cut through the church like a knife. The ring box flew through the air, scattering rings across the altar steps. Guests shrieked, jumping to their feet. The groomsmen lunged forward, trying to pull Hero off, but the dog held firm, shaking his head violently. "Get him off! Get him off me!" Liam was screaming now, his face contorted in agony and something else, panic that seemed disproportionate to the injury. Chloe grabbed Hero's collar, using the emergency release command. "Hero, out! Out!" Hero released immediately, but he didn't retreat. Instead, he positioned himself between Chloe and Liam, hackles raised, teeth bared, a continuous growl rumbling from his chest. Blood dripped from Liam's hand onto the white carpet runner, spreading in dark crimson blooms. "Someone call 911!" Maya shouted. But then Chloe saw it. As Liam clutched his bleeding hand, his jacket had fallen open, and something slipped from the inner pocket, a clear plastic evidence bag, the kind used by police departments, with an official seal and case number printed on it. It landed on the altar steps, and inside she could see papers, documents with her signature. Her signature. "What is that?" Chloe heard herself ask, her voice sounding distant and strange. Liam's eyes went wide, and for a split second, the mask slipped completely. Not pain, not confusion, pure, calculated fear. "I can explain," he started, but he didn't get to finish. The church doors burst open, and 4 people strode in with the kind of authority that made everyone freeze. 2 of them were the cousins who'd arrived late, Robert and James. They were holding badges now, raised high. "Nobody move!" James commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Federal agents!" The church descended into chaos. Guests were shouting questions, trying to push past each other toward the exits. Bridesmaids clutched each other in confusion. Chloe's mother had gone pale, gripping the pew in front of her, but Chloe couldn't move, couldn't process what was happening as the federal agents strode down the aisle. "Everyone remain calm and stay in your seats," Robert commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Chloe looked down at the evidence bag on the floor, then at Liam, who was still clutching his bleeding hand. "Liam, what is this? Why do you have Chloe Marie Bennett?" A woman's voice, sharp and official, came from behind her. Chloe turned to see 2 uniformed police officers emerging from the guest section, people she'd assumed were distant relatives or +1s. The woman was tall, her expression impassive as she approached the altar. Her partner, a broad-shouldered man with cold eyes, moved to flank Chloe's other side. "Yes?" Chloe's voice came out as barely a whisper. "I'm Officer Sandra Mitchell. You're under arrest for money laundering, wire fraud, and identity theft." The words hit Chloe like physical blows. The officer was already reaching for her handcuffs, the metal glinting in the church light. "What? No, there's been a mistake." Chloe tried to step back, but Hero was behind her, and the officers were closing in. "You have the right to remain silent," Officer Mitchell continued, her tone mechanical. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." "This is insane." Chloe's father pushed forward, but another officer, this one emerging from the groom's side, blocked his path. "She hasn't done anything. There must be some mistake." Chloe's hands were pulled behind her back, the cold metal of the handcuffs clicking into place over the delicate lace of her wedding dress sleeves. The sound echoed in her ears, louder than the gasps of the guests, louder than her mother's cry of disbelief. "No, wait, please." Chloe twisted to look at Liam, desperate for him to explain, to fix this, to tell them they had the wrong person. But Liam was staring at her with an expression she'd never seen before. His face had transformed into a perfect mask of betrayal and shock, his injured hand pressed against his chest, blood seeping through his fingers. When he spoke, his voice carried through the church, broken and devastated. "Chloe, how could you?"
His eyes were wide, wounded, disbelieving. "I trusted you. I loved you." Several guests gasped. Phones were raised now, recording everything. The bride in handcuffs, the bleeding groom, the chaos unfolding like something from a crime drama. "Liam, what are you talking about?" Chloe's voice cracked. "I didn't do anything." "The evidence speaks for itself, Ms. Bennett," Officer Mitchell said, guiding her firmly toward the aisle. Hero lunged forward, barking frantically. But one of the groomsmen had grabbed his leash, holding him back. "Hero!" Chloe cried out, trying to turn back, but the officers were moving her forward, past the shocked faces of her friends and family. "Sir, we'll need to take you to the hospital for that bite," James, the federal agent, was saying to Liam. "We'll need your statement about how long you've suspected your fiancé's criminal activities." I found some things," Liam said, his voice trembling perfectly. "A few weeks ago. I didn't want to believe it. I thought maybe there was an explanation." He looked directly at Chloe, and for just a fraction of a second, she saw something flicker in his eyes. Not pain, not betrayal. Something cold and calculating. "I never thought she'd go through with the wedding." The interrogation room was nothing like the ones Chloe had seen on television. It was smaller, colder, with flickering fluorescent lights that made her eyes ache. The white wedding dress that had made her feel like a princess now felt like a costume, the delicate lace scratching against her skin, the layers of tulle crushing beneath her as she sat in the metal chair. They'd removed the handcuffs, but Officer Mitchell stood by the door, arms crossed, watching Chloe's every movement. The federal agent, James, sat across the table from her, a manila folder thick with documents spread between them. "Ms. Bennett, I'm going to show you some evidence," James said, his voice professionally neutral. "I need you to look carefully and tell me if you recognize any of this." He slid the first photograph across the table. It was a bank statement, an account at First National with her name printed clearly at the top. The balance made her stomach drop. $847,000. "I don't have an account there," Chloe said, her voice shaking. "I've never seen this before." "Your Social Security number opened this account 14 months ago." Another document slid across. "Here's the application. That's your signature, isn't it?" Chloe stared at the signature line. It looked exactly like hers. The distinctive way she looped the C, the sharp angle of the B. But she'd never signed this, never even seen this bank's paperwork. Someone forged. "And here," James continued as if she hadn't spoken, "are the transaction records. 47 deposits over the past year, ranging from $15,000 to $60,000 each. All from shell corporations linked to a money laundering operation we've been investigating for 18 months. More photographs, more documents, each one bearing her name, her signature, her information, bank accounts she'd never opened, wire transfers she'd never authorized, business entities registered in her name in 3 different states." "This is impossible," Chloe whispered. Her hands were trembling so violently she had to press them against her thighs. "I work in victim advocacy. I make $42,000 a year. Where would I even get—" "Your fiancé makes considerably more," James interrupted. "We believe you were using his access to high-net-worth clients to—" A howl cut through the air, distant but heartbreaking. "Hero." Chloe's head snapped toward the sound, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Please, where is he? Is he okay?" "The dog is being held in a kennel downstairs," Officer Mitchell said from her position by the door. "Animal control will determine if he's dangerous." "He's not dangerous," Chloe's voice broke. "He was trying to protect me. He knew something was wrong with Liam. He's been trying to tell me all day." "Ms. Bennett," James said, his tone hardening slightly, "your dog attacked your fiancé during your wedding ceremony. We have dozens of witnesses and video footage. Right now, you need to worry about yourself, not the animal. He's not an animal. He's my service dog." Chloe was crying openly now, mascara tracking down her face, her carefully styled hair falling loose from its pins. "Please, you have to listen to me. I didn't do any of this. Someone set me up." James exchanged a look with Officer Mitchell, one that made Chloe's blood run cold. She'd seen that look before in her work with victims, the look that said they'd already made up their minds, that nothing she said would matter. "Liam?" Chloe said suddenly, the pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. "It was Liam. He had access to everything, my laptop, my documents, my social security card. He could have—" Another howl from Hero, longer this time, desperate and anguished. The fluorescent lights hummed above Chloe's head as she sat in the holding cell, still wearing the top half of her wedding dress. She'd lost track of time. Hours, days. The white fabric was wrinkled now, stained with tears and the grime of the metal bench. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Liam's face, that perfect mask of shock and betrayal as the officers had pulled her away. How had she been so blind? The clang of the cell door made her flinch. A man in a rumpled suit stood there, holding a tablet and a worn leather notebook. He was older, with silver threading through his dark hair and deep lines around his eyes that suggested he'd seen too much. "Miss Parker, I'm Detective Chen. Mind if we talk?" Chloe's lawyer had told her to say nothing, but what did it matter now? She gestured weakly to the bench beside her. Chen sat down slowly, placing the tablet between them. "I've been reviewing your case, specifically the wedding footage." He tapped the screen, and Chloe's stomach lurched as she saw herself, frozen in that terrible moment. Hero's teeth bared, Liam recoiling, her own face a portrait of horror. "I don't understand," she whispered. "He's never done anything like that before. He's a service dog. He's trained—" "Exactly." Chen's voice was quiet but firm. He rewound the footage frame by frame. "Your dog didn't bite the groom when he approached the altar. He didn't bite during the vows. He waited until this exact moment, when Liam reached for your hand to place the ring." He paused the video, zooming in on Hero's face. The dog's eyes weren't wild or vicious. They were focused, determined. Chloe's breath caught. "He was trying to stop him. That's what I thought too." Chen swiped to another video angle. "And there's more. See these two guests, third row?" He highlighted two well-dressed men who looked like any other attendees. "Your dog alerted on them twice before the ceremony. Body blocking, low growling, textbook detection behavior." "I don't understand. Who are they?" Chen's expression shifted, something like vindication crossing his features. "Federal agents, undercover. They've been investigating a pharmaceutical fraud ring for 6 months, completely unrelated to your case. But your dog? He made them immediately." He leaned forward. "Ms. Parker, service dogs are trained to detect specific scents, changes in physiology. What was your dog trained for?" "Panic attacks," Chloe said numbly. "Changes in my heart rate, stress hormones." "And what about chemical signatures? Residue from currency, documents, evidence-handling materials?" The cell suddenly felt smaller. "You think Hero was detecting evidence?" "I think," Chen said carefully, "that your dog knew something was wrong long before any of us did. And I intend to find out what." 3 days later, Chloe stood in the same interrogation room where her world had collapsed, but this time the atmosphere had shifted entirely. Detective Chen spread photographs across the table like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. "Liam Chen, no relation," he said with a tight smile, "has been running a sophisticated identity theft and money laundering operation for over 2 years. You were his perfect cover. A respected elementary school teacher with spotless credit, a woman who keeps to herself, rarely checks her accounts because you trust your partner to handle the finances." Chloe stared at the images. Bank statements she'd never seen. Signatures that looked like hers but weren't. Packages shipped from her address while she was at work. But the evidence, my digital signature, forged. Expertly, I'll admit. Chen pulled up another photo. This is what Hero smelled on Liam's briefcase the morning of the wedding: isopropyl alcohol, acetone, and specialty ink, materials used in document forgery. And this, he tapped another image, currency counter residue. Liam had been handling large amounts of cash that morning, preparing the final transfer. The undercover agents, Chloe said slowly, understanding dawning. Hero smelled them too. Federal agents carry distinct scents: gun oil, specific cleaning solvents, even the materials in their concealed equipment. Your dog's trained nose picked up everything that screamed wrong about that wedding, including 2 cops Liam had no idea were in attendance. Chen's expression softened. Hero didn't just bite Liam to stop the wedding. When we analyzed the footage more carefully, we realized Liam was wearing gloves under his sleeves, latex gloves. He was about to plant something on you during the ring exchange, probably a final piece of evidence to seal your guilt. The room spun. He was going to frame me in front of everyone and disappear with the money while you took the fall. But your dog, Chen actually smiled now, your dog is the reason we dug deeper. His behavior was too consistent, too purposeful. We got a warrant for Liam's actual apartment, the one you didn't know about. Found everything. 2 hours later, Chloe walked through the precinct doors wearing borrowed jeans and a sweater someone's wife had donated. The wedding dress had been bagged as evidence. Outside, an officer led Hero from the K9 unit holding area, and the moment the dog saw her, his entire body came alive. Chloe dropped to her knees on the concrete steps, and Hero crashed into her, whimpering and licking her face with desperate relief. She buried her face in his golden fur, her shoulders shaking. "You tried to tell me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Every single time you tried." Hero pressed against her, solid and warm and utterly loyal. Around them, the city moved on, people rushing to appointments, to meetings, to their own lives. But Chloe stayed there on those steps, holding the creature who had seen the truth when she'd been too blinded by love to recognize the lies. Finally, she stood. No wedding, no husband, no fairy tale ending. Just a woman and her dog, walking into an uncertain future that was, for the first time in years, entirely and honestly hers. "I'm so glad you stayed with me until the end." If this story caught your interest, just wait until you see the next one. It's truly mind-blowing. Click the image on your screen right now to check it out, and I'll see you over there.